This conference will now be recorded.
Gorgeous.
I told him it was no hurry with them because we were still waiting on the other two parcels.
Oh, yeah. But still, it would be good if we can extend the conversation to that.
Yeah, and get that, that's the most important part of this, is the others. If we can get that in a contract,
Jason will be joining late on video.
shocking.
No, they're still in
So
school.
there's a video or late?
Oh, you're gonna have it.
Right there.
Hey, Art. Oh, my back is about broken. I'm in basement number 3 after an attic, cleaning out 45 years worth of.
What are you doing with this stuff?
Right now, it's a big pile in the parking lot. Danny Wyckoff is picking it up.
Too bad he doesn't go in your basement too.
Oh, he is. No, he is. He's got, I think Friday he told me there'd be four guys there.
Oh, great.
So one day, and we'll raise 45 years. Jesus. But I forget that I've got saw tables down in the basement under the house. I haven't used them in 10 years, but I don't want to go.
Your son-in-law.
Snow, well, he's up here helping me right now, but unfortunately brought his new truck up, which doesn't, it's got that big crew cab, but it's a big Ford, it's a nice truck. But no room in the damn thing to use it as a truck. Jeez, I don't get it. But, yeah, I grabbed onto a couple of tree trimmers that I had, the fiberglass extension pole ones. Anyone started to put in his truck, he said, I guess I'll have to ask you to bring those down the next time you come down. Well, I had business records all the way back to the first day that I bought the motel in 76.
Could have got rid of
Yeah, well,
Put them on eBay, Craig.
yeah, interesting history in there, but everybody says keep your receipts. My father did that, I did it. And now they're all, in fact, my parents' estate, Sunday afternoon, I was in the attic. Those have already gone to the landfill. Why we kept them? No idea.
Yeah, we all asked that same question.
And I had some furniture stored up in the basement. The basements are dry and there's a boiler that keeps it, it's always 58 degrees. All the wood delaminated, and it was all little pieces sitting on the floor.
It's all junk.
Someone for saying,
Yep.
Good intentions.
yeah, that's all it was.
I like looking back to the 80s and seeing what we charged for a hotel.
Yeah, I started out in 76 at $18 to $22 a night per room. And it was paying $2.25 an hour to a housekeeper.
When I was 11 years old at the Holiday Motel, the old Holiday Motel, just fighting with this lady, $14 I asked her for room rate, cheap. I got down to 11 with her. French Canadian.
Oh, she got down to 11.
Yeah, exactly. And then she didn't want to pay tax. That's where I fell.
Okay, well, I guess Jason's going to be a little bit behind. I don't have a really big built-up agenda today. Most of the weekend I spent in my basement. But we did get notice yesterday, today that, and we're not sure why, but we've got an algae bloom going on in Mirror Lake, in the south end around the beach area. So largely, this press release that went out that I think the watershed people developed. But what Brendan Wilsey has looked at it. He says these bacteria are a natural part of the lake's biotic community, whatever that is. Concern arises when dense plumes form. They're capable of producing toxins that can be harmful to humans and animals. He says it's important to note that the presence of a bloom doesn't necessarily mean that toxins are there, but I think Butch's people are putting out a couple of signs over in the park area to caution people not to let their dogs drink the water. Says near the beach and public park, both the watershed groups, Au Sable River, Adirondack Watershed Institute, and Mirror Lake, they're all engaged in this. So there's a press release out today that shouldn't panic people at the moment. I was asking some questions after lunch about it. The lake has turned over this year already.
Already.
But, and it may very well be that this unusual period of warm weather, Brendan seems to think that there's a possibility that nutrient-rich water from the bottom of the lake may have gotten to the top and the heat may have activated this. So that's probably the answer, but so much for that.
Today at the Golden Hour Job, I haven't seen the Lakers in a long time.
Really?
There's tens of them. It goes swimming around,
Yeah.
around, around. Yeah.
It's really cool to
Yeah.
see that.
I mean, they're easily 26, 28 inches.
That's, and that may be another byproduct of the climate right now.
Yeah.
You know what, and there's not a lot we can do about this stuff. I mean,
Usually when they're spawning, they become.
I used to see them right around the beach dock all the time.
Exactly. Glad to see they're still there.
Art attended the business association this morning. We're trying to drum a little bit of support for maybe the creation of some sort of a local law on the feeding of, we haven't come up with the right name yet, wildfowl, waterfowl, pigeons. They're still around. Although I haven't seen them as much on top of the roof at the Episcopal Church as we were seeing. So I'm hoping that maybe that lady found something else to feed. But in any event, it appears that the business association, Art, chime in on this if you want to, would support some sort of local law. I think it's more, rather than enforcement, it's going to be more a function of education.
When I spoke to them, they asked if we could just table it for a month so their people could talk about it, get back to them, and they'll come up with an answer for us by then.
Well, if they could do an answer in a month, I think we'd be greatly relieved. But I suspect that DEC has no legislation that prohibits that. There are times that they do come out with laws that govern the feeding of wildlife, but this isn't one of them. But my curiosity is, I take my bird feeders down in the spring and don't put them out until there's snow on the ground again, because I was told that bear population are attracted to them. And I think a lot of people tend to do that. So, I mean, I think a lot of this stuff is education. I don't know what else we can really do about it, except shoot them. Judge them.
Reference.
I found out what a shotgun, a 12-gauge shell with bird shot in it will do. It's pretty effective. I guess the bigger problem with all of it is if they're depositing that stuff on the surfaces, it is toxic and it can be harmful to people's health. So we should at least be trying to educate the community to those aspects of it. Maybe they'll slow it down. On Main Street, there's a press release that was put together that I believe will be issued today. And it basically just indicates, and it's coming out of the Community Development Commission who helped us work on this aspect of it. It just says, indicates what the Community Development Commission is, a little PR in there for them. And it indicates that they help to implement not only the comprehensive plan of the village, but also at work, many of the members have worked on the upgrades. So it says there'll be the way the presentation is going to be done, it's got to be done virtually. We're limited to 50 people in the room, which means if the members of the, we're assuming 15 members, including the panel, will come out of the Main Street group. It leaves about 35 seats. People are going to have to call because that's all we can put in the room.
Is this at the Olympic Center or where?
A conference.
Conference center?
Yeah. What I hope we're going to do, and I don't have all of it, I hope to have some discussion with Mary Jane and Kate Thompson. When the Sports Council did their presentation a month ago, they did it, they had the panel set up in actually in the Edie building for them. But what was important about it is they gave the presentation, but then there was an open chat room so people could ask questions. And one of the moderators went through the questions. Oftentimes you got several questions that were the same thing. But the moderator would sort those out and then would raise the questions and somebody on the panel would respond to it. We expect to have Ivan and Brad, a representative from Creighton Manning, because I know there'll be interest and curiosity in how the traffic is going to flow. I think that's a big issue. Dean Dietrich, of course, had this effort, and I'll be there just to do an introduction. And then the presentation is laid out. Have you all seen it? It's laid out in about 17 or 20 slides. So these slides will prompt a piece of the panelist discussion presentation as to what it is. And then people like Ivan, Creighton Manning will be there largely for the question and answer segment of it. That will be somehow preserved and recorded so that we can use it for service club meetings. We can get in front of Rotary in particular, has a large population, Lions Club, so that we can get people a little bit more familiar with the fact that it is what it is. It's not changing the Main Street dramatically in terms of appearance, in my opinion, but yet it is a huge upgrade. So
Do you have a date?
the actual presentation will be the 17th of November, and I believe this says 5:30 to 6:30 on Tuesday, November 17th. And
So you said there's 35 people from the public allowed.
that's all we can put in the room.
I know, they're going to tell people first come, first served kind of thing?
Let's see what she says here. Those closest to the project will share an overview of the anticipated changes to Main Street. After a short presentation, attendees will be able to ask questions of the presenters, including the group I mentioned. Then it goes on to talk about how you dial into this virtually. Let me see here. Here it is. For those who do not have internet access, there is a very small number of seats, 35, due to current COVID restrictions available for in-person participation in the ballroom at the Olympic Center. So that's what's going out. These seats will be available on a first come, first served basis. So that's going out today, by the end of the day.
Should we be there, like the board?
I think in that 35, the priority would be board members for sure that want to be in there, and also members of the Main Street focus group to the extent that we can get them in.
Okay.
So that's a piece we got to work on, but that's I think that'll help a lot with this. I think the other piece that I wanted to just bring up for you today, which we did meet we're talking with two, not the Hutlinger family in the back of the MBT lot. They've kind of agreed on an exchange. We're gonna adjust the boundary lines up there. It's almost an even exchange, one for another. But right now, their property line basically cuts down into the left-hand side at the top of the parking lot. And we need to straighten that so that when a ramp is built up in there, it'll be square to the street. I think that was the primary driver of that. The other two pieces we need are, it's a sliver of land that starts out at 0 at Main Street and widens in the back of the Bass building to about 20 feet. Peter's been working with the owners of that property, and there's at least an offer to sell us that piece of property. They're asking for 50,000. However, and then the second piece extends over the O'Neill property, which is up behind it, and it would go from 20 feet at the back end of the Bass building to about 42 feet up at the westerly side of that. That would allow this to go in without taking a major cut in parking places to have to reshape the whole thing. In order for us to even talk, I mean, the O'Neills had talked to us a little bit about putting it, about getting them a driveway over the parking lot. I'm not overly keen on that idea, but that's how they came to us. But I am interested in exploring whether or not we could work something out where we could purchase that easterly side of their lot. It's not a piece that they can ever develop. It's
South side of the lot.
So there's some conversation that we hope to continue there, but as Janet has pointed out, we need to get at least a fairly simple appraisal done of the values so that we've got some basis to talk to them.
So we met with Don Hoffman last week.
Yeah, Don Hoffman did the appraisal on the museum parcels when we bought them, a few years ago. So he came in, normally the way this would be done is you would appraise the entire properties and then you would appraise them without that piece, and the difference would be what the value is we should be paying. That's an expensive appraisal to do. So what he's proposed to us is to do a restricted appraisal report. If we had to go into an eminent domain climate, this report would have to be expanded. It would be included, but it would have to be expanded to a higher level appraisal. Package price is $1,500 to do those two, which actually I think is probably a pretty reasonable offer. So I'm going to indicate to them that we'll proceed, we'll accept that offer and proceed with this professional service, so we can do that. So hopefully sometime in the coming months, we can get this project to a structural engineer and actually give the community something that I think is the best opportunity we're going to come up with. And then the other thing I did go over, Ivan had provided me with, there's 10 different segments to the bids on this Main Street project. I think you may have seen it, Peter, electronically, but I had Ivan run it so that this is each one of the 5 bidders, and this was Ivan's budget, because some people were curious as to why Ivan was calling it an $8 million project and why it came in at 10. And the answer to it is fairly simple. Mobilization, I did an analysis of each one of the segments here by Fabricki's bid. Mobilization was estimated at $1 million by Ivan, came in at 2.1 million. So there's $1 million.
That's because we shut it down in the summer.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
that's the price we pay for that, if in fact, and you know, actually, at some point, I want the community to know this. This is the cost of doing business in that manner. The other piece that makes a difference is whether we use granite which we very much would like to use on the Main Street. And Art had some discussion with the Business Association this morning. Or we also had them bid it with an option A, which would bring the granite option is $1.7 million. If we were to eliminate that, it would drop that price by $900,000. On the other hand, you take $900,000 in terms of what the value of Main Street is over 30 years, and you're using a granite product that will probably be there in 30 years, whereas the pavers probably won't. So this is all available if any of you want to review it. There are multiple copies of it, but I did take the time just to go through it. Most everything else, it was interesting. Kubricki on the other segments, like the water supply, estimated $1.4 million, came in at $940. Drainage system, stormwater, estimated $1.569 million, came in at $1.517 million. Sanitary sewer, these are the hookups I guess they have to make as they go down through. That was a small item, but estimated 108, came in at 31. The pavement improvements, which we're interested in right now and talking with the state, $1.6 million, came in at $1.490 million. Sidewalks, $2.5 million. He estimated pretty close, actually came in at $2.6 million. So, but that's with the granite. So if we do the other, if the other option had to be done, there's some room there. Pavement markings, $138,000, they were pretty close on that. Site improvements, they were pretty close on exactly what those all are. Landscaping, $500,000 in there for that. And then some electrical expenses that they'll run into. I think that might include the conduits that we
For the
want.
meters, or for the light poles.
Yeah, poles. So it was estimated at 9.6 million. It came in at 10. But in there, we've got everything.
What I'm still not clear about, Craig, is how much One Main Street Park gets redone as part of this project.
Well, looking at the,
Besides the bioretention, we know.
yeah, right. And other issues that we've got there, we've got a couple of property owners that surround that had volunteered. Number One Main Street had offered some money for that owner. And also I think the High Peaks Resort had offered some money for that park. So those are things that Janet is going to have to reopen discussion on. Remember when One Main Street Park, when they had that overhang that was sticking over the village, they offered to come up with some money.
Yeah,
So there's an agreement.
It's a legal agreement. You can get money out of it.
Speaking
Let's
about One Main Street Park, the other night in that snowstorm, our sidewalks, the space between the telephone pole and the Main Street sign that's right there, and there's a green, thank God there was a wooden green planter there. It wiped it out. So looking at the rest of them, they were all kind of rugged and raggy. So I had Brad's people take them all out. Sharice is going to do something a little bit different. There'll still be something nice in there, but it won't be quite so cluttered for the winter. Obviously, what we do in the spring will largely depend on where they start the project. So we got a fair amount of work. I think some discussion I think we need with Ivan and Brad is we've got some time from now until spring to sit down with a contractor and map out how they're going to do this so that we have a better understanding. And also it's going to be important because we're going to try to keep a Main Street
liaison
type of committee together. It'll be part of the overall Main Street Task Force group that's already been in place. I don't know what else we can do. There's, I think communications is important, no question about it. But I also think that Kubricki has done some decent work up there. They didn't get kicked out of here with the last project. So keep our fingers crossed.
didn't have to deal with Main Street merchants.
What else have I got here? Press release. COVID, the Department of Health for New York State came out with a slightly upgraded, modified quarantine traveler notice. And it goes like this. It says all travelers in New York from a state that is not a contiguous state. So New Jersey, Connecticut, I guess Vermont's contiguous, if you want to argue that. They don't like us over there right now. Or from a CDC level 2 or 3 travel health notice country shall quarantine for a period of 14 days, consistent with Department of Health regulations for quarantine, unless, and this is some of the new stuff, for travelers who have traveled outside New York for more than 24 hours, such travelers must obtain testing within 72 hours prior to arrival in New York. That's been out more than 24 hours. And these travelers must, upon arrival in New York, quarantine according to Department of Health guidelines for a minimum of 3 days, measured from the time of arrival, and on day 4 may seek a diagnostic test to exit quarantine. So the 14 days, if you can get in 3 days, you can get to a negative test, you're out of the 14-day quarantine window. When I first looked at this, I thought it was worse, but it seems like it's relaxed a little bit. For travelers that meet that criteria, the traveler may exit quarantine upon receipt of the second negative test result, which actually is the one they took before they came in and the one after. Contiguous states. Yes, sir.
I do have a question on that. So I've read 3 different accounts, one from the hospital, one from the county, and one from the Visitors Bureau down in Plattsburgh. It says that you have to take a test 3 days before leaving. Let's take my case in Florida. It takes 3 to 6 days to get results back. So all they care about is the fact that I took a test, or do they want to know that I wasn't positive before I leave? It really doesn't spell that out anywhere.
Oh, I'm reading right from the Department of Health itself, which is the word. Must obtain testing within 3 days prior to arrival in New York. So it must obtain. My presumption is you would have to have the result of that test.
I wouldn't. You just said you must obtain a test.
Yeah.
Down here, you take a test and it takes 3 to 6 days to get your results back. So what do you do if you're flying? You take a test and now you find you're positive. I mean, it's not possible to keep up that schedule.
Yeah. And now you are right that is not clearly stated in here, Art. And yet
I'll check with Jay on that. I'm sure you can get answers from the county.
Yeah, well, I think the effort on the part of the state was to relieve some of the 14-day burden. But then it goes on to talk about contiguous states being Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Vermont. Travelers from those states are not subject to this guidance. Travelers who leave, here's the other piece that's interesting. Travelers who leave New York State for less than 24 hours do not need to obtain a diagnostic test before departing and do not need to quarantine upon return. However, these travelers must fill out the traveler form upon entry, I think that would be re-entry, and must obtain a diagnostic test on the 4th day after arrival in New York. So that's, and it goes on for 3 more pages here of they've got exceptions for first responders, for essential workers. And I should add on the essential worker thing that the village and the town are proceeding. I think we have a group meeting with Anita and Butch, Jay, myself on this essential workers pandemic plan, basically. So that's getting ramped up fairly fast. We're trying to get the basics out of the way before Thanksgiving, and it gets difficult because we're in hunting season. We need Brad, and we need I think Brad, Bill, and one other one. Mindy, from our group, the town has to do something similar. So, I mean, thank goodness we've got consultants guiding us that maybe know what they're doing, I hope. Couple of other things coming out of the community development group. Art provided me with a copy of the North Alba Community Tourism Enhancement Fund, and you'll recall that Art is our appointed person to that. This is the 2% bed tax. They have come up with a proposed, and this would be how the grant proposal is going to be graded by the committee.
Good to see that.
My understanding is grants are only eligible to either, correct me here if I'm wrong, Art, because some of this I'm fuzzy on. Either would be local government projects or they would be local not-for-profit organizations. So a private person that wants to put an addition on their house, for example, wouldn't qualify. Is that right, Art?
That's my understanding, yes.
Anything else, Art, on that you've got?
No, at this point, they've come up with two categories. I believe it's 0 to 50,000 and 50,000 and up for bigger, large projects. But so far, that's as far as it's gotten.
You think, Art?
And I understand the town board approves.
Yeah, that's a point that we have one voice on that committee. It's got a lot of other business people in the community, almost many from the hotel segment. However, the final authority that determines whether or not the grant is issued is the town.
Yeah. So your group is going to recommend, and then the town approves?
That's right. The board I sit on is just an advisory board. It makes suggestions, but the town is the final authority.
And that's because it's a county program?
Well, like it or not, the governor does not like villages. He only wants towns. He puts the power of these things in the town. We're not legally allowed to accept that money or be part of it.
You mean we're not legally allowed to tax it? We are.
The county is the only one that's allowed to tax it, but
Right.
we are not allowed to be where the money is sent to, according to what I've been told. Only the town is allowed to do that.
So that maybe that helps to explain, because I raised that issue. I didn't like it very much when I saw it, because frankly, 75% of the tax that's collected under 2% comes out of the village.
I agree with you, but my understanding is there's just nothing we can do about that.
Yeah,
We just
no.
have to put our faith that they'll represent us correctly.
Art and I have batted that one back and forth to death.
I think, it's one of the things where there's going to be a big pot of money. I do think it's going to be a big benefit for the area, and it's just the way it had to be done. We also had to give $45,000 to the management of the fish hatchery, or they wouldn't allow it to go through. And the administration of this fund, $85,000, I think, goes to the administrating organization, which is Roost. I mean, these are all just things, and then plus the $20,000 to each village or town in the county. So we're stuck with that.
$300,000 is skimmed off for each one of the towns, and the majority of them don't generate their own tax, any appreciable amount.
And
85,000.
we're still talking 700,000 a year for North Alba.
And then the fish hatchery gets, which up until now has been funded from other county funds, so they've offloaded that on it. Frankly, little North Alba is carrying a big load here.
That's the rule.
On the other hand, you're looking at a county where there is no other resource in the county, so, I guess we have to look at it, that what's good for the whole is good for us. Any other thoughts on that, Art?
No, I do have go ahead.
When do they start receiving applications, Art? Has that been published?
That hasn't happened yet. I couldn't make last week's meeting. I had a conflict, but we're supposed to be finalizing that tomorrow morning, and I should have an answer.
Okay.
I would assume it's soon because they're trying to get some of this done for winter time.
Yeah, and the other point would be, do we have any projects within the village that we should be submitting applications for?
Parking structure.
Probably premature
Well,
on that.
Like you say, it is, but I don't think it's out of the question in the future that they could fund the parking structure.
That thing looks hideous.
That's a good point. The building down at Mill Pond, Art,
Yes.
by the dam, needs a whole new roof on it.
Thought that got done a couple years ago.
Have you looked at it? Holy crap, that looks hideous.
Maybe we should take a look.
Coming off of it.
I mean, because we have every opportunity to submit applications for projects for this money, and that might be one that would be, I'm guessing it wouldn't be outrageously expensive, but we ought to start getting used to submitting applications for everything.
Can be done in the winter.
Yeah.
Want to walk on the ice there.
Walk on the ice.
I don't know, it's whatever.
There must be an application form somewhere, Art.
Yeah, I sent that to you, didn't I?
I've got what appears to me to be the grant proposal evaluation.
Okay, you didn't get, I've been trying to get that information. What I got was just what I got today. Apparently we didn't get the form itself. I'll make sure I get that tomorrow.
Or maybe I mistakenly didn't see everything that came with it, but this I printed off because I happened to see it. Okay, well, that would help. And yeah, I mean, if we've got some, and again, I mean, we need to start thinking about how we can leverage that tax money back into our village because it's coming out of here. I don't want to sound like I'm throwing cold water on the brand because I'm not, but
Well, it doesn't end up going to businesses.
well, if they start doing that,
I mean, like beer pubs and stuff, that this other economic development money seems to be giving out to for-profit businesses. I don't like that.
well, so far it appears that it's restricted to municipal or not-for-profit organizations. But we have a lot of little not-for-profit organizations that could easily,
You mean like Sinfonietta could apply?
Symphonetta could apply, the Placid Seniors could apply.
Yeah.
On the other hand, maybe some of the money that we're giving now as budgeted contributions could be shifted. It's just a thought.
One of their requirements that they've talked about so far is that it can't be something that you give every year. So you couldn't say like our contribution to beautification would discontinue and they would pick it up. However, every year beautification could apply for something saying we want to buy pots or we want to buy trees or something like that.
In fact, beautification is a great subject to bring up, Art, because that's one where this fund should be underwriting all of it. Since it's community money, tax dollars that are being raised. I want to also mention that when I was working with Sharice the other day on 1 Main Street and trying to fix that up a little bit, she mentioned to me that she's very concerned that the beautification organization is going to drop her health insurance. If they do that, they've lost Sharice. She did approach the town and the town board said they could not provide her with health insurance. I'm not sure how we could either, at least she's not a direct employee, but
How is it paid for now for health
well,
insurance?
she
Only
is-
her and nobody else, right?
Lake Placid Beautification is a not-for-profit. It's got its own board. And I think we ought to have a discussion with maybe Greg Peacock about what, or I'll have that discussion with him about what she asked me, because she was asking me if we could do that. And I said, I'm presuming that's a family plan, which is a big nut.
Well, she's not an employee.
No,
So,
if what had occurred to me is we've kept the beautification funds that they receive directly, we've kept it at 30,000 for at least a dozen years. Maybe we've got to look at that. Maybe we can, I'll talk to Jay about, because that's another way. I mean, beautification would still be providing it, but maybe their budget's just.
what's Greg Peacock got to do with anything?
He's on the board, and usually, in my experience in recent years, he seems to be the one that's the most knowledgeable. Again, we have all these boards, and we hardly, we don't know. And Sharice does such a terrific job that you never hear from her people. I just happen to know that they have a board. So I'll pursue that. It's important to us, and certainly Sharice is somebody that we want to encourage as much as is reasonably possible. But
Well, it's very much a board like the volunteer ambulance. It's a board that we've been advised we don't want to take on as part of the village, just like the volunteer ambulance. And although we did in the last 2 years, to my knowledge, put money aside to help out the volunteer ambulance if they needed it. I
Yeah.
suppose you could do the same thing. Is that correct?
Well, here's how we work. The town makes a direct contribution to the ambulance. I put money in the fire department budget. Usually it's $15,000. In the event that typically what we're asked to do is to provide them with qualified drivers when there's no volunteer drivers. So if we pull a driver out of the firehouse, because usually that's where we can find them. And what happens then is we have to call in another driver. So we've used that line. I don't know if Mindy's actually even aware of this, but in the past we've used it to compensate that additional call in. So in effect, we're giving them manpower and covering, and then we have to backfill the firehouse. So that's how we've done it. Maybe the time is coming. We've got to look at this a little bit more carefully, but up until now it's worked, but it's primarily work. Justin actually is a member of the volunteer ambulance. Dave Woods, I could assign Dave like on a Friday night, which is typically when there's no volunteers. I could send David Wood over there and he would drive. Or oftentimes what we do is we'd have him put a box at the firehouse. So one way or the other, we made it work. That all came about one weekend a few years ago when we were right in the middle of the busiest weekend in the summer. And I got a phone call from Larry Brockway. They had no drivers. And I said, so I called Betty Little because technically we can't provide those people the way we were doing it. And I just said to her, I said, Betty, I don't care what the technical requirement is. We got to have a driver. Somebody has a heart attack. There's going to be nobody there for them. And so we worked out this other arrangement that most of the time, if you go back and look historically at that budget, I don't think we ever, and again, it depends on whether we're paying enough attention to realize that we can charge that. But we've helped them out. The other thing with beautification is that they get the electric department or Brad's Garage help them out with the maintenance of their fleet of vehicles. We may provide them with a battery or a set of headlights, whatever it takes to keep them legal. Sharice is always praising the electric department. Of course, I'm asking why we're doing that, but I think I know why. But overall, there is some indirect help that they get to, and we support them. If she needs help moving something, usually somebody from Brad's department goes and does it. You saw them all up there the other day when we were cleaning up the damage. Another topic that's developing, and I don't know where it's at. And this is a community development initiative as well. But the commission, Dean is looking to begin to step back. But in doing so, he's promoted with this started out back a while ago when we were talking about the development of the housing project up at the South Science Center. There was talk about the town hiring a community housing officer. It's fine. I mean, if that's a necessary function, the town was looking at, there was no discussion with the village whatsoever. And frankly, there still isn't. But they're now proposing a position that's called Community Development Officer. It would be like Jeremy Evans was in Saranac Lake, only Jeremy worked for the village. And they've got a job description that I think is, I don't know if they've had another meeting on this, Art, but it talks about a full-time development director. The position would involve working cooperatively with the town and village boards and community members to facilitate all aspects of maintaining and implementing the North Elba Lake Placid Comprehensive Plan.
Is this, sorry, Craig, is this the same position that they can use for the land use code?
Land use code is not getting a position any longer or money.
They're not getting a position. The town, when they did their budget, they had a $600,000.
So first they were going to hire a consultant, and then that got
gone.
stripped.
That's stripped.
That's stripped. But then they were going to hire a body, I thought.
I think this may be the body.
Like
But-
after the land use code is done, then they can move on to this other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same skill sets.
It says the development director is expected to provide administrative support and/or act as chair to working committees, regularly attend meetings of the town board, village board, and development commission, and represent the community at regional planning initiatives as directed. The director will also have a role in coordinating and managing the publication of information. This is one tall order, I will tell you that. The
This is
ideal
the one they
candidate-
won't pay $50,000 to, right? This
Yeah.
position.
The ideal candidate would have a strong background related to community planning and development, housing programs, and communications. Candidates must have the equivalent of a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university with major coursework in planning, communications, public administration, or a related field. A master's degree in planning or public administration is preferred. This is a full-time position with a starting salary of $50,000. In addition to the salary, the position will include a benefits package with health insurance and enrollment in the state retirement system. So you're looking at another 38%.
Paid for by bed tax money. Not bed tax money, vacation rental.
The short-term
Short-term
vacation
rental.
rental money, yeah. That I don't have a major issue with. Again, I'm just concerned once again that these people, initially this person was going to be answerable to the development commission. And Art will tell you, I kind of had a bird over that. Because they've got to be accountable to the local governance. The Development Commission is only a recommending body. We make the decisions, we and the town board. So he's got to be accountable somehow to these two boards in order for me to be even interested in it. But, it's not wrong that they're looking to develop this. It's probably, if you look through the comprehensive plan, it's embedded in there in different ways. The money to pay for it, it appears that that's going to be coming out of the short-term rental pot. That ought to be a consistent pool of money for years to come. But again, I frankly, I'm very doubtful that you're going to find a person that meets those standards for that money.
Okay.
Jeremy Evans was getting $75,000 a year. I think his successor was a lady. It's probably right around 65 and plus pennies.
Craig, when the money value kept dropping, that was a consensus of the board that they wouldn't get anyone with any experience. It would be someone out of college looking for a job. And so far, that's the only applicant that's applied. They do have really good credentials, but they've got no experience.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for that kind of money. On the other hand, if we had the right kind of money to offer, I think we probably would attract somebody that's interested in this type of locality. But I think, I think what I'm trying to do, what Art's trying to do, we're trying to keep our board informed of these initiatives. They don't always come to us in the beginning. And that was sort of the case here, but this came out of a discussion really about the cell science project and a housing director. And that was, the ball rolls, as you can see.
Well, Craig, I also think part of the thought on this is that if this position actually comes in, proves its worth, proves it's needed, and you then up the income to the person, you might be able to track someone with better qualifications. But first, the position has to prove it's needed.
Yeah. Well, and frankly, you may have to take the guy that's right out of school initially, or gal, and see where it goes. But just at this point, as I said, that our board has not actually been actively engaged in this discussion. If it weren't for the fact that Art sits on the Development Commission as our liaison, but I've been trying to push Dean to, and that's why you're seeing him coming back to our board meetings and presenting. We need to know what we're doing, not once a year, but
He got the message last time.
I think so. But having said that, we've got to continue to, contribute whatever encouragement and direction we can. That makes sense. Not easy. In the short time I had today, because I took yesterday off, I will admit I didn't show up in the office, and so I've got 125 emails.
$big bucks you get paid, Craig.
Well, one of the problems that's happened since March with COVID, everything is email communication, and if you're not seeing it, I was okay up until about a month ago when my iPhone, the storage is shot on it. There's no more room. And so I took the village emails because I could get those anywhere. I took the village emails off it to try to see if I could fix the phone. It didn't help. I don't even get my own emails now on my phone. So it's, so if the only way I'm seeing my emails is when I come in the office. So it literally makes me even need to be here more. But that's fine. I don't mind it. I'll probably replace the phone, but I first want to find out because this keeps telling me that there's a storage bar on it, and it's about 80% other storage, and I can't figure out what other is.
Like wraps.
Somewhere in there's something that's eating it up, or I've gotten some kind of a bug in it. That is a problem. The chairman of the county board, Sean Gilliland, sent out an email this morning. He says, don't respond to anything asking for money that comes out under my name. That's not me. So, supervisors all over the county have been getting this request that looks like it's coming from Sean. But somehow people can hack into your address and they can create a message that looks like it's you. We've been seeing it. Anita said mine was doing it a month ago, which is probably why I'm having some kind of trouble with it.
Craig, have you taken your phone to Patrick Wells?
You know what? Thank you, Art. That might be a whole lot better than trying to follow all the directions that Apple's providing me, which are useless. But on the other hand, I haven't been sleeping much nights lately, so I've been trying to make the phone work better.
Give Patrick a try. That's what he's there for.
Admittedly, it's only 16 gigabytes of memory, or storage, so maybe a new phone will do a little better. I understand now that even the base phone comes out at 256. When I bought the phone, I only wanted it to be a phone. It's kind of outgrown it. Okay, we talked about that. I think we covered the things that I threw on my list quickly. Anything that anybody else wants to bring up, or do we get an early out here?
So I started the Bullwinkle's wall today.
Yes. No,
From what I was told by Brad, that's supposed to be done. It's just a matter of waiting on the fence to come. Is that correct?
No, it just started today.
They started today, Art. The provider of the fence is also the installer of the fence.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's underway. Actually, you look around the village, we've gotten a lot done this year.
See.
So if there's anybody else have anything that they'd like to bring up, we've got some time.
One thing that's happening also in the vacation rental end, and it's sounding like we're not going to get a professional to come in and help us out, so we're going to have to do the work on that, is we have to decide where we think vacation rentals should not be allowed, which would be what we consider just neighborhoods, areas where they should be allowed, and what restrictions should be there. But I'll try to bring more of that to the board in the future, but that's kind of on the plate.
And Art, looking at the map, I think, the work that Patrick has done for this community, not only just our board, but what he's done for the town board and for these committees that are working on all this stuff. I think we all saw the other night how valuable that can be in terms of giving people an impression. But when you look at it, I mean, the town outside of the village really doesn't have a vacation rental problem. There's very little penetration out there. So the biggest opportunities to protect those neighborhoods that are just outside the village limits are obviously going to fall into those areas. I think other neighborhoods inside the village that are looking for relief, it's going to probably have to be some kind of grandfathering arrangement that over a period of years. I've seen this done in some other communities where they get, say, 10 years and then they're forever gone. But also Art and I were talking this morning that it makes sense that we would encourage them to go into those areas that are semi-business areas in the community, which would be the village center, which is Main Street, and also the gateway corridors, which run out Cernak Avenue, Wilmington Road, Cascade Road. That's where our business community is. The sad thing, in my opinion, when I've gone over the comprehensive plan and the zoning and all of this, is nowhere in there in our land code does it even talk about commercial. Main Street, the two primary things you can do without having to go to the planning board, you can build a single family house or a two family house. Does that make sense? I mean, his Main Street has always been the center of our business community. Business buildings, yes, there's apartments there and there are residents living there, but the focus of it, the primary use of it is business, it's commercial. And yet the two primary things that you can do without having to have the whole planning board on board are not commercial. To me, that's a failure, and I know I'm going to offend some people by saying this, but it's a failure when we did the land code over back in 2010-11. And I think the other thing we did that was horribly bad was when we homogenized all the residential neighborhoods into one. And that's why we have the trouble we've got today.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't just that. I mean, yes, at the time they were trying to make it easier for somebody to build a mother-in-law cottage in the back of their lot, increase the density. All of that probably was okay had we had stricter regulations. But in my opinion, when I look around at some of the things that have been done in our community, we're not strict enough with them and we don't hold them to the regulation. I mean, I can look at the property that's being built next door to me. That's a joke. He's got a permit to run a restaurant with maybe 12 parking places. And he convinced them to go along with it because he said, well, I'm just a little bit off from Main Street. People can walk there. Walking across that intersection when it's busy. But in my opinion, those are things that are making this community less attractive for a resident that wants to make this their permanent home. So we really do need to work diligently to try to do what we can to correct some of the And I won't say that they were intentional. I don't believe that at all. I just believe that our inability to look far enough ahead left us in a situation that we didn't respond to maybe early enough. But it seems to me if we're going to have a neighborhood that's predominantly business focused, that it ought to be focused on business interests, not on single family homes.
I'm not sure exactly how the process is going to go, but I believe it's going to be recommendations from this land code steering committee. I've given Dean what I thought the idea should be to go to the supervisor and the mayor and run by before these recommendations are made public.
I saw that and I thought that was a good point, Art.
And then the next move after that will be public hearings. But I think before we go to those, it would certainly help a little bit if the two boards had a chance to have a lot of input.
You're right.
And I think we just have to be really careful because there are factions even on this board that say, oh, all around Mirror Lake is already all vacation rentals. Let's just write it off. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. And I disagree that Hillcrest should be written off wholeheartedly. I think we started a great trend by limiting the number of nights, and we're starting to push that backwards. I think the house on Hillcrest that was one of the biggest renters that sold, I think that's a start in the right direction. We should keep it up.
Well, and we have that option. I mean, you know, and that's why I said, I think that's why the town went ahead so quickly and went back to, 120 nights. They just don't have the problem we've got in the village here, but we're not going to have a village neighborhood at all unless we take a very strong stand on this. And it's going to be difficult, and we're going to have to give people time to maybe grandfather out some of these properties that are so entrenched. But there are good people on that steering committee, and including one that lives right in the thick of it on Hillcrest, and he's got past experience with the code, so I'm hopeful that you know, that those voices will help move it in a good direction. But I think we're going to be preoccupied with this, and Art is absolutely correct when he says that the two boards are going to have to put some time into it.
Also, I think you've got another thing you got to keep an eye on, and that's the fact that the town now has a vested interest in the vacation rental permit money, as they're using it to fund a town function.
And they may not want to diminish it in the village where the majority of it's coming from, 75%.
That's what I'm getting at. I think we have to keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I mean, I don't think we're going to ever provide all of the solutions that are needed here. And frankly, we're always trying to balance that with the fact that tourism is our primary economy. It's what drives us.
Well, Roos is going to do a study to tell us that.
Yes. And that study, the destination management plan that Roos is funding is geared to trying to look at the quality of the types of business we're doing in terms of tourism and events. And hopefully something, Dean feels that it's important to have that piece done. And I guess maybe because they also have money and they're ready to go. And then we start working work that into the comprehensive plan. I hope.
Craig, you mentioned that Roost is paying for that. When they came and presented to us, they really were asking for money down the road. Are you sure they're going to pay for the whole thing? Or are they going after the town and village?
I've had nobody from Roost has approached me about funding any of this. My understanding is they're paying for it.
Okay, good.
I thought they're gonna pay for it with the 2% money.
Well, they have to apply for, for money from the group. We'll see what happens. The town would have to approve it.
Yeah. It's an interesting card game.
Yeah, I mean, it's there.
Well, if really good benefits really do come out of this study, then I would think that would be something the 2% group would want to invest in. It's there for the benefit of the village and the town and the tourists.
I think you're right, Art, and there's no question. I mean, there's a number of issues out in the community. I hear them. I hear people talk about how they get event weary, tourism weary. You start pushing the seasons more and people are really looking for a break. And it's, you know, it's probably more, well, this year, especially without enough labor, I can't imagine how any of our businesses are feeling. But, you know, they're operating at either 25 or 50% of their former capacity. They're operating with bare bones help. Peter's learned how to do house cleaning.
I think Peter and I already knew how, and so did you a long time ago.
Yeah, I think so.
I made a point of never learning how to make a bed.
Well, if you do make it bad so that
Oh,
somebody
yeah. Okay.
doesn't get out of the way.
Well, if you can believe what's going on TV with vaccines coming, at least we have some hope in sight.
Yeah.
Maybe by next summer.
Well, at least
But,
that's
you know,
the time.
You know, I really think we've got some major, our community, they're on a decent course. If we can keep everybody's feet to the fire, we're on a good course where maybe some of these things will begin to work out. But it's going to take patience and we're going to have to pay attention. Jason, you're pretty quiet. Oh,
So it's been a long day here at school, especially with Franklin County coming down with their decision how one portion of the county is going remote starting Friday and the other is going starting on Monday. And we've been prepping a lot here, but we're one of the only institutions, if not the institution, that's having students here 5 days a week. And we're working very hard to maintain that. So it's been busy. So I'm more of listening today than I am. You caught me on the downswing energy wise.
I thought you might comment on that. And I mean, Franklin County literally is shutting down all their school systems and they're going to be shut down until January, I think I read January 3rd or 4th after the holidays. So it's all going to be remote learning for those kids. And, you know, keep our fingers crossed.
Parents are screwed.
Yeah.
So
Keep our fingers crossed and hope it keeps going here.
Some of the measures here at school would be, they would be perceived to be aggressive when it's symptoms and sending students home and requiring testing and then modifying the day, eating lunch in the classroom. We've done a lot to minimize movement. And I think as a whole community, we've taken it very, very serious as far as businesses and others, because they want the schools to stay open. And we've been very fortunate in North Elba, even though we've had a case here and there or businesses volunteering to close down. These are sort of the measures and sacrifices that the communities are making, this community is making in order to help keep the schools open. And we appreciate that for sure.
Well, it's critical to the working families, the moms and dads that are trying to maintain their household, and school is a big part of what lets that happen. Mm-hmm. So it is critical, and you know, I think I mean, it's encouraging news that there may be a vaccine out there, but it's still going to be months before it gets out there. The more encouraging news that I'm aware of is the fact that an arrangement between Trudeau Institute and Adirondack Health is opened a laboratory now at Adirondack Health. So tests are going to be able to be processed locally, at least certain tests, and the turnaround time is pretty quick.
No, certainly. My son was sent home and he was not, from their perspective, the daycare, as long as the symptoms are progressing. And then I was fortunate enough to, there was a cold and it was a mild one, but unfortunately, if any staff is showing symptoms, we need to get tested. I was tested on Sunday and I received my results Tuesday mid-morning. So it was a quick turnaround time. I came back negative. That's nice though.
So we all want to be appreciative of the whatever arrangement that they and Trudeau were able to do, but my understanding, I think they can do up to 90 tests a day right now, and they're doing some fundraising to see if they can expand it. And if it expands and the laboratory remains, the laboratory can provide other services that are income generating so that it can be a continuous operation. One of the huge advantages that's come out of that Trudeau relationship with them. So just, we all need to be aware of the fact that's hopefully is going to make our life a little better in terms of the turnaround time, because otherwise you have to ship those tests to Albany.
Down here, you can get a test at the local drugstore, the CVS. The bad news is that they give you a stick and you've got to do it yourself, and they give you a line on the stick that you've got to go in through. That's what I thought, Jason.
I'd rather have the nurse do it because I'm like.
I'd rather wear a mask.
What is it?
No way.
It's not comfortable.
I hear now, didn't you tell me they're doing a spit test here? Somebody told me that they're doing a spit test, which looks pretty quick.
I haven't heard of that.
The spit part. No, it's a little, it looks like a little strawberry on the end of a stick, and you just put it in your mouth and that's it. So,
So, yeah,
Greg, I do have one question that we talked about earlier. We kind of got away from the part about the state paying portion of our Main Street that they would have had to have done if they had come in, like the blacktopping and the base. Has anything more been done about that, or what's the next step there?
the next steps are, I want to go back to Ivan. He had given me the name of someone a while ago that used to be with DOT that he thought would be helpful before I go making a demand on DOT. Ivan thought that guy might be able to give me some valuable information. So I will get that, and hopefully I can do that tomorrow and get that conversation started. I mean, ideally, I'd like to ask the state for, nobody else is on, is there? No, $2 million. But I know that they're starting at 200,000. But we've got data that now identifies what the cost of that pavement is. So with that information, I think the other thing I need to do is I'm going to start by calling Christina and just asking her where we stand with the work permits, because we had, I 2 months ago sent them everything they asked for. Christ, was 14-page letter. And he responded to all of it, and we really haven't heard anything, so the time has come to push a little bit. I'm sure they're figuring they've got the winter to drag their feet, but we don't. And also, even if we got $1.5 million of that money out of them, it's a big chunk out of the part that would be long-term loan otherwise.
Yep.
Big help.
Yeah. So thank you, Art, for reminding me on that. Anything else? If not, we'll easy day today.
I like seeing you guys in short sleeve shirts.
Yeah,
Probably be the last.
after today, that'll be maybe we'll get tomorrow. Let's hope. For that.
I haven't seen the outside yet, so I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, well, everybody have a good day.
Gentlemen, theater.
Town board meeting takes over next. Why don't you stay and listen to that?
I didn't see a lot on I didn't see a lot on the agenda.
How do you have an agenda? You know,
See you, Craig.
Take care. Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Scott.